WADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar, 7 p.m. in Lagos. Good evening and welcome to Newslink, live on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar and worldwide at wadr.org. First, our top stories. Nigerian opposition political parties reject 2026 Electoral Act, call for fresh amendment process. The Gambian government launches initiative to promote inclusion of children with disabilities.
Because it has been realized that children with disabilities are marginalized, are isolated, are not empowered, and they are not given that kind of support.
Latest report by International Federation of Journalists reveals 128 deaths of media professionals in 2025, and Guinea unveils new census figures showing over 17 million increase in population.
A vivid snapshot of Guinea, now home to 17,528,167 people.
Please stay tuned for details of the stories and more.
On the news, this is a more edit.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and a warm welcome to all of our listeners across the sub-region and beyond. We'll begin in Nigeria, where opposition political parties have rejected the 2026 Electoral Act recently passed by the National Assembly and signed into law by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The parties called on the National Assembly to immediately begin a fresh amendment process to remove what they described as all obnoxious provisions in the law. Their position was made known at the press briefing themed Urgent Call to Save Nigeria's Democracy, held at the Transcorp Hilton in Abuja on Thursday. In a communique read by the chairman of the New Nigeria People's Party, Ahmed Ajuji, the opposition leaders demanded that the National Assembly immediately commence a fresh amendment to the Electoral Act 2026. They want the Assembly to remove all horrible provisions and ensure that the Act reflects only the will and aspiration of Nigerians for free, fair, transparent and credible electoral process in the country. Still in Nigeria, normal operations were disrupted at the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control (NAFDAC) as union members protested the agency's enforcement of a sachet alcohol ban. Staff of the agency were locked out of the offices in Lagos. Members of the Association of Senior Civil Servants of Nigeria staged a protest. WDL's Abuja correspondent Diachino Sasechi reports.
Protesters say the implementation of the ban, which is aimed at curbing the production, sale and consumption of low-cost packaged alcoholic beverages, is affecting workers and informal traders who depend on the industry for their livelihood. Union members gathered outside the agency's office, preventing staff from entering the premises as they demand a review of the policy and engagement with relevant authorities over its impact on jobs and economic activities in the informal sector. The workers argue that while public health concerns are important, abrupt enforcement without adequate stakeholder consultation is harming businesses and the incomes of low-income consumers. Some traders at nearby markets have also expressed frustration over the ban, saying it has led to reduced sales and loss of customers who previously purchased sachet alcohol. NAFDAC officials have not yet issued a response to the protest, but observers say the disruption highlights the tensions that can arise when public health regulations intersect with economic interests and livelihood. According to union leaders, the protest will continue until their concerns are addressed through meaningful dialogue with policymakers. For WADR, Diachino Sasechi reporting.
Elsewhere, the Ghana Armed Forces has concluded a major search and rescue operation for Ghanaian fishermen who were stranded at sea following an armed robbery attack off the central regional coast. The fishermen were left adrift after assailants made away with their outboard motors and personal belongings. WDL's Accra correspondent Nadi Tete has more details in this report.
According to a press release issued from the General Headquarters of the Ghana Armed Forces in Accra, the distress call came from approximately 35 nautical miles off the coast of Gumwanyanyano in Senyabreku in the central region. The fishermen were attacked by robbers who reportedly disposed of the engines of their boats and seized personal items, leaving the vessels incapacitated in deep waters. Member of Parliament for Iwutu Senya West, Gisela Tete Agbochui, confirmed the incident.
Yes, so it was a robbery. The usual
They are on their typical fishing expeditions. Then a black boat came with, and they were armed. About 4 people or so in the boat. They were armed, so they just fired their shots, and then when they get to you, they just shoot off your outboard motor and then take it along with them. So this morning, when the Sanya canoe owners, when they took 4 outboard motors with them out to sea. They knew where some of them were, so they went there first, and then they tried to go further, just to be double sure that, they have not left anybody behind. So when we did the checks, I think all the canoes are accounted for, and they are here.
The rescue operation, which began at dawn, was led by the Ghana Navy with support from the Ghana Air Force and local fishermen within the area. The Navy deployed its special boat squadron with fast interceptor crafts backed by additional Navy ships from both Eastern and Western Naval Commands. The coordinated efforts resulted in the safe evacuation of the stranded fishermen who were transported to shore at Tema and Senyabreku. The Armed Forces says interviews conducted with the rescued fishermen indicates that no one was kidnapped during the incident. Meanwhile, the Ghana Navy says it has intensified patrols within Ghana's exclusive economic zone, including the affected area. The military is urging fishermen and other maritime users to remain vigilant and report any suspicious activity as investigations continue. The Ghana Navy says it remains committed to combating piracy and armed robbery at sea and ensuring the safety of vessels operating within Ghanaian waters. For WADR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Away from Ghana, experts from the Volta Basin Authority are meeting in Lomé, the Togolese capital, to finalize a strategic framework aimed at strengthening sustainable development across the Volta Basin. It is an initiative that seeks to better integrate environmental value into the economic planning and decision-making of countries that share the basin's resources. The 4-day working session is scheduled to conclude on Friday, February 27. Let's join Christopher Tijo for the details.
At the heart of the discussions is the validation of Deliverable 4, a document that assesses the environmental capital and services provided by the basin's ecosystem. Hydropower, agriculture, and aquaculture are some major resources that support national economies. The Deputy Executive Director of the sub-regional organization, Dr. D.B. Melogo, said the goal is to provide member states with robust environmental indicators and a common methodological framework. This meeting is part of a series of technical workshops organized since 2025 to harmonize approaches among the 6 member countries. The anticipated recommendations should influence policies related to water, energy, and ecosystem preservation, spanning 407,000 kilometers square across Burkina Faso, Mali, Benin, Togo, Côte d'Ivoire, and Ghana. The Volta Basin is a strategic area characterized by strong interdependence among these countries. In a context of demographic pressure and climate change, the initiative aims to reconcile economic development and sustainability for more consented and responsible management of the basin resources.
Out the report from our Lomé correspondent Silvio Dragon, voiced by Christopher Ticho. The International Federation of Journalists, IFJ, has published its 35th annual report, which lists the number of media professionals killed in the discharge of their duty in 2025. The report released on Wednesday documents 128 media professionals killed, including 11 women and 9 accidental deaths. According to the report, 18 journalists were killed in Africa, including 7 accidental deaths in Nigeria and 1 in Burundi. For the 3rd consecutive year, the Middle East and the Arab world represent the deadliest region for journalists in 2025. Meanwhile, the Federation predicts that about 74 journalists are expected to be killed in the Middle East and Arab world, including 56 in Palestine and 1 accidental death in Iran. The IFJ calls on UN member states to urgently adopt the International Convention on the Safety and Independence of Journalists, initiated by the IFJ to end the cycle of violence and impunity. Meanwhile, in Côte d'Ivoire, the National Union of Journalists, UNJCI, is experiencing one of the most delicate institutional crises in its history. The issue is at stake is the renewal of its governing bodies. Initially scheduled for February 13 and 14, the 12th elective Congress of the Union has been postponed indefinitely, plunging the umbrella organization for Ivorian journalists into deep uncertainty. Augustine Kuli tells us more in this report.
Two candidates are at the heart of the tensions, those of Marie-Laure Ngoran and Frank Etienne, both candidates for the presidency of the organization. At the center of the dispute is the validity of the candidacies, the composition of the electorate, and the entities responsible for organizing the election. Meeting in an extraordinary General Assembly, the UNJCR decided to extend the current leadership until the 12th Congress is actually held, a decision adopted by a large majority but immediately contested by Marie-Laure Ngoran's camp, which sees it as a violation of the statutes and internal regulations, denouncing an electoral haste.
Today, the problem is simply one of the text itself, of the genuine will to implement the text. We are at a Congress, and it so happens that at this Congress, some people want to manipulate the text so that at all costs a candidate is elected in order to perpetuate a potentially corrupt system that is in place at the head of the UNJCI.
Conversely, Frank Etienne's supporters denounce these as delaying tactics. They accuse their opponents of manipulating the law to postpone the election to the detriment of the unity of the profession.
Someone who has been involved with the UNJCI since 2016, who has served on UNJCI board for almost 10 years, was never criticized. Now, when he decides to run for president of the institution, people are saying he is not a journalist. The board of directors and the UNJCI's own judge have determined that both candidates are qualified to compete. Now, if the opposing side believes it has more journalists on its side, it will go straight to the competition.
At a time when the credibility of the press is a central issue for Ivorian democracy, this crisis raises a crucial question, that of journalists' ability to apply internally the democratic principles they defend in the public sphere.
A report from our Abidjan correspondent Marcel Ariston Bland, voiced by Augustine Kuli. Elsewhere, the Gambian government has launched a new program to promote inclusion for children with disabilities. The initiative is led by the Gambian Federation of the Disabled and supported by the European Union, Catholic Relief Services, and the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education. It focuses on education, technology, and play to encourage equal participation in schools. Organizers say the project aims to challenge stigma and shift attention from disability to ability. The first phase, titled Sensitization of Girls and Boys Drama and Environmental Club members, will be introduced in selected schools across the country. Mohamed Krubali is the chairperson of the federation and describes it as an important step towards empowering all children.
Children need to be empowered through education, inclusive education, especially children with disabilities. In fact, that is our focus, because it has been realized that children with disabilities are marginalized, are isolated, are not empowered, and they are not given that kind of support. So ensuring that obviously they compete, with their peers in all aspects, especially in the area of inclusive education. So we believe that it is through inclusive education for children with disabilities, thereby giving them all kind of support in terms of technology. That is, if you are visually impaired, if you need tape recorders, braille machines, computers with speech synthesizers, and other materials to support their inclusive education in classrooms and in school environment, so that they can successfully participate, they can be included in the lessons, and they can actually compete, with their peers, in classrooms. And outside the school, of course, for example, skills training. Children with disabilities can be trained in terms of skills to ensuring their social and economic well-being, to ensuring their psychological well-being, etc. And of course, quite apart from that, in terms of sport, recreational aspects, children are also very important to be trained in this particular area, just to ensure that they also take part in terms of extracurricular activities.
Mohamed Krubali is the chairperson of the Gambia Federation of the Disabled. Now to the Central Sahel region, particularly Mali, where the oil sector is entering a new phase. A year after Total Energies withdrew from the country, the supervision of its network of service stations has officially changed. Since January 2026, the sector has been under the control of NDC Energies, a national company regarded as strategic to ensuring fuel supply and supporting electricity production. Abdul Hassan has more details in this report.
NDC Energy has now taken control of one of Mali's reliable networks responsible for hydrocarbon supply. The company, which previously owned only 4 stations in Bamako, now has 80 service stations and a fleet of more than 200 tanker trucks. For more than 25 years, it was operated by Total Energies before being sold in 2025 to the Beninese company Koli Energy Company, an affiliate of the Benin Petrol Group. Through this acquisition, NDC strengthens local fuel distribution, an essential element for electricity production. Garba Jallo, an energy specialist, speaks about this latest development.
Electricity production is practically 110% thermal. Thermal power refers to generators, and these generators are fueled by fuel. Whether now, given that if a national company, NDC, manages to acquire the Total Group, it will increase the supply not only of fuel but also of fuel storage. So, I believe this gap will already be filled. It will also allow the electricity sales and production company to truly go beyond its current production levels.
The return of Total Energy's network to national control by NDC Energy marks a major step for the Malian oil sector and the country's energy safety. This comes at a time when fuel supplies were disrupted in 2025 by insecurity. In recent months, the Group for the Support of Islam and Muslim (GNIM) has intensified attacks on tanker trucks supplying Bamako with petroleum products.
Bamako correspondent Liu Cham sent in that report and presented by Abdullahi Hassan. Well, crossing to Guinea as the country is facing a new demographic reality, preliminary results of the 4th General Population and Housing Census were presented on Wednesday in Conakry. According to the official figures, Guinea's population now stands at 17,521,167 inhabitants. The updated data are expected to serve as a critical tool for guiding public policy, development planning, and resource allocation nationwide. Sankli Janko brings us the details in this report.
The figures from the General Population and Housing Census followed several months of data collection across Guinea. The Minister of Planning and International Cooperation, Ismail Nabe, presented the results and emphasized their strategic importance for the country.
A vivid snapshot of Guinea, now home to 17,528,167 people. It highlights its youthful population, with those under 35 representing 79% of the total, comprising 51.8% of women and 48.2% men. This serves as a starting point for better planning our infrastructure and anticipating future needs in education, healthcare, employment, and land use planning.
The exercise was largely financed by the Guinean government in collaboration with its partners. It relied on mapping carried out in 2024, subdividing the territory into enumeration areas to ensure accurate data collection. Prime Minister Amadou Wuriba is calling on the government to adapt its priorities in light of the new requirements revealed by the report.
The need to anticipate and plan for this, because families will need schools, planned housing, and our spending will require investment in improving the living conditions of the population.
With more than 17 million inhabitants, Guinea is entering a new phase of its demographic evolution. For the authorities, the challenge is now clear: adapting public policies to new demographic realities to meet the needs of citizens.
A report from our Conakry correspondent Cherno Afa Ibrahim Abad and voiced by Sankli Janko. You're listening to Newslink live on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar and online at wadr.org. Here is a reminder of the top stories. Nigerian opposition political parties reject 2026 Electoral Act, call for fresh amendment process. The Gambian government launches initiative to promote inclusion of children with disabilities. Latest report by International Federation of Journalists reveals 128 deaths of media professionals in 2025. And Guinea unveils new census figures showing over 17 million increase in population. Still ahead, we do have the guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Don't forget you can listen to us live on wadr.org and follow our live streamings on YouTube and Facebook. In Liberia, the government has formalized a collaborative framework to support the integration of Ivorian refugees and other displaced nationals into Liberian society. The landmark Memorandum of Understanding is designed to streamline the implementation of Executive Orders number 144 and 147, ensuring durable solutions for refugees who have chosen Liberia as their home. Observers say the initiative underscores the country's commitment to responsible migration governance, offering a rights-based pathway to regularize the legal status of integrated refugees. WDL's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
During the signing ceremony in Monrovia, the executive director of the Liberia Refugee Repatriation and Resettlement Commission, Jarako Bangalo, emphasized the significance of the MOU, describing it as historic.
By aligning the mandates and technical capacities, we are establishing a clear, efficient, and rights-based framework to regularize the legal status of integrated refugees through the issuance of biometric resident permits, specialized refugee identification cards.
Meanwhile, the Commissioner General of the Liberia Immigration Service, Elijah Rufus, said the MOU will add the value to refugees' status in the country.
These refugees, considered as community citizens, have chosen to be integrated into our society. We want to assure the Liberian people that we want to work in close coordination to ensure that this is a possibility.
Additionally, the head of the National Identification Registry highlighted the importance of secure and verifiable identity documentation as a gateway to dignity, inclusion, and opportunity for refugees.
The National Identification Registry is charged with the responsibility to uniquely identify all citizens and foreign residents who intend to reside in the border of this country. We can assure you that we play our role more effectively and cooperate with you and list.
Authorities say by providing biometric resident permits and specialized refugee identification cards, Liberia is not only complying with international obligations, but also empowering refugees to fully participate in the country's national development processes. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
In Senegal, opposition leader Barthélemy Dias denounces the persistent hardship facing ordinary citizens. The leader of the Senegal Binubok Party voiced concern about the living conditions of Senegalese and outlines measures it believes are necessary to address the situation. It made the remarks during a press conference on Wednesday following a nationwide tour.
My
dear compatriots, Senegal is sick. What we have witnessed is not simply a delay, but a complete collapse, and the government is struggling to produce any meaningful figures. Senegal Benibok is concerned about the sudden fire at the Ministry of Finance, the sudden burglary at the IT Department of Treasury, and the sudden cyber attack against the Automation Department. We demand non-negotiable transparency regarding a common heritage of the Senegalese people, particularly oil and gas revenue. Senegal Benibok proposes the preservation of student achievements, respect for the state commitment, especially towards union members, and a structured, funded, and monitored national irrigation plan for the population of the North.
Senegalese opposition leader Barthélemy Dias.
Politics, analyses on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, let's take you back to Nigeria as the country's acting police inspector general Tunji Disu pledges zero tolerance for corruption and impunity within the service. Tunji, who previously served as assistant inspector general, was formally decorated by President Bola Tinubu on Wednesday at the State House. His appointment follows the resignation of his predecessor, Kayode Egbetokun, marking a new chapter for the force. However, the appointment of the new police chief comes as Nigeria grapples with rising insecurity. Our guest is Roshak Gulmuta, Nigerian security analyst, who shares his insight on the matter.
I think we can respect the position of the former IGP, but it is clear that security situation in the country has continued to go from bad to worse. I would think, in my opinion, that would have informed why the president had asked him to resign his position as the Inspector General of Police.
Contrary to what he said, that he is resigning as a result of family considerations, you believe that he was forced to resign by the president?
Yes, I think the president is at the center of it, considering the recent spat of killings and massacre here and there in the country, especially in the north central of Nigeria. I think that would have informed that. And secondly, the IGP himself has been under fire. Some section of Nigerians believe that he has overstayed his welcome in public service because he was due to have retired on attaining 60 years of age. And I think that has been something that has been on his back, where the president decided to extend his stay as IGP. And that has also been an issue. He's tried to weigh it off, and it's not been able to do that.
Let's reflect on his stay as the IGP in Nigeria. What would you say were his major shortcomings?
The police, under his watch, really failed to get the necessary intelligence needed to stop crimes from happening. I think that has been a bane on his stay in office because crimes have been perpetuated. The police seem to be handicapped in understanding when, where, and how these things are happening. So kidnappings are just being carried, families. You check the records in money that have been paid to kidnappings. It's just on rise. So it will seem that the intelligence part of the Nigerian police was lacking in either funding. Largely, the thing is, intelligence was really down, and that will be one of the legacies that he would have left behind.
All right. What do you think the new acting IGP Disu can do differently, especially in a context where Nigeria is approaching elections next year? What could be done differently?
I think Inspector General Tunji will have quite a lot of work on his hands. That he has served in some of the most controversial states of the country. He has served in Lagos, he has served in Rivers. And of course, anyone who has served in Rivers with the election brouhaha around Rivers State, I'm pretty sure that he will have an idea of what he wants to do. And to add to it, his immediate pals, head of intelligence, sort of a cliche anyway, but I will assume that by now, since he's at the helm of affairs, he will make sure that the intelligence that he's been feeding on the table of his predecessor should be dispatched, that part of the intelligence should function optimally.
Nigerian security analyst Rashad Goma there speaking with Veronica Njai. And in sport, a Nigerian court has charged a driver involved in the crash that injured British Nigerian heavyweight boxer Anthony Joshua and killed two members of his team. Joshua's personal trainer Lateef Ayodele and strength coach Sina Gami died when their Lexus SUV collided with a stationary lorry on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway on December 29. The driver for the 6-year-old Adeni Mobalaji Kayode is facing charges including causing death by dangerous driving and driving without a valid license. He appeared before Magistrate Court in Ogun State, where the case was adjourned until March 13. And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismaila Kamara Maudoju for the technical support. I am Imo Edet. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Baga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.